Welcome. You join me here today at Moat Park and we're going to be doing some quiver tipping. So I'm going to be talking about different rods that we're going to be using, the different tips on the rods, the reels, the lines. We're going to go through the different feeders I'm using, my bait choice, the different ground baits, bait introduction, and just a few rigs and fishing methods. So I'm keen to get started because I fancy a few bites today. So let's crack on. I've got the new super feeder, which is going to be my bream mix. Now, I used to use a mix of sweet skimmer and some dark Thatchers and pro sweet, but the lovely people at Sonny Baits have created this one. So now I haven't got a mix and match. This is everything I need in one bag. It's a new sweet fish meal ground bait, which I think the bream in here are going to love. Now this is a natural venue, but it does still see plenty of pellets and a few boilies and things, so this could be the one. So to mix it, I'm going to get some in there. I'm actually going to over wet it. I'm going to get loads of water in there. So it's actually, that might be a fraction too wet. Now you look at that and you think, oh, that's, you're just not going to put that through a feeder like that. But if we give that 10 minutes, that's going to dry out enough that when I introduce it, it's going to sink like a brick and stay on the bottom. For bream fishing, what I don't want is an active ground bait. I don't want anything popping up off the bottom. I want everything hard on the deck. So by over wetting this, there's not going to be any dry ingredients in there at all. So now I'm just going to leave that, come back to it in 10-15 minutes time, push it through a riddle, and it'll be lovely and heavy. It's going to sink and be inert on the bottom. So I've pushed my bream ground bait through the riddle. Look at it now. It's taken on all that water. It's nice and fluffy, but there's not going to be any particles there popping up off the bottom. That's going to stay exactly where I put it, so that's ready to fish with. So I'm going to get some of that out, a bit further out on my bream fishing line. So to add a bit of attraction and to try and draw some bream in, so I'm not just using the ground bait, I'm actually going to give it some extra pulling power by putting in some chopped worm. Now this is really as an attractant, so I will be using worms on the hook. What I don't want is for them to be eating big chunks of worms, so I've chopped up this into very, very fine pieces, almost to a mush. I've even chopped a few casters up in there. Now I'm just going to add a few more casters to that. That's going to sort of be a bit of a holding bait. So I've got some nice attraction in the worms and then a little bit of a holding bait with the casters and the ground bait. So let's have a look at the bream rig that I'm using today. So first thing that I need to put on is a feeder bead, a Korum feeder bead. This is a quick change bead, so I can change feeders over and it slides up the line. So that's the first thing that goes on. Next thing is going to be one of our mega grip stops. I'm using the XL one. So the line's through the wire loop and then you slide off the mega grip stop off the wire and up the line. Now I'm just going to slide that up out the way, up there. So I've got a couple of feet of line. Now I'm actually going to tie a little twizzled boom, and to do that, just hold the line. You need to twist your fingers in opposite directions. And there you can see that twizzling up. A bit more. So I've got it about 4 inches or so. So that's that twizzled together. I'm going to tie a figure of 8 loop, so a nice big loop, so it's over, under, back through. So that's one. And then I'm going to tie an even smaller one. So over, under, through. Now you can slide that grip stop all the way back down. And the feeder bead's going to sit above that. Now the next thing I'm going to do, I could attach my hook length straight to this little mini loop. What I've actually got is one of our specimen quick snap swivels. And I'm kind of going to loop to loop it. So now I've got a little twizzled boom, which when the feeder's on there, that little boom's just going to hold the hook length away from the feeder. So that's a nice little robust link there. And then on this quick change specimen quick snap swivel, I can attach my hook length. So the advantage of this is I can easily change different lengths and sizes of hook length and size of hook, but also because that spins as I'm retrieving the worms or double maggot, whatever I'm using, the hook length is going to spin up, but it won't twist all the main line. So I've got 2 feeder rods set up today. I've got a 10-foot all-rounder quiver with a 3000 Inferno that I've loaded with 6-pound line. That's my close-in rod for my little fish, and I've put a 1 ounce glass quiver tip on that, which is really sensitive, and that's going to show me every little tiny indication. And then on my longer range bream rod, that's the 11-foot all-round quiver, and on that I've got the 2 ounce glass quiver tip. So we're into another bream, and you'll notice when I'm playing them I keep the rod down level with the water. What I don't want is the rod tip up in the air, because with bream particularly they come up to the surface and I don't want it flapping around on the surface 40 yards out, because that leads to hook pulls. So the hook length I'm using for the bream fishing is 24 inches of the 6 pound smoke shield to a size 16 specimen hook. Nice little combo and plenty strong enough for these bream. Let's have a look at the feeders I'm using today and some other options. So initially I put on one of our mesh feeders, and that's the one I use to pack with feed to bait up with at the very beginning. And once I've actually started fishing, I've swapped over to one of these Preston plug-it feeders. Reason being, as you can see, they're designed for you to plug ground bait at each end, and then in the middle you can put your chopped worm or maggots or whatever, and they're not going to get out. So when would I use the different feeders I've got here? So I've got this standard solid type feeder. Now these are for venues that are deep, where you don't want to lose any bait before it hits the bottom. So there's the ones that I'd use if I was fishing on a deep venue or on a river where I want the bait to get down to the bottom before it comes out. On lakes like this that say 7, 8, 9 foot deep, I'd be using this mesh feeder. That's going to get down to the bottom, bait's going to come out nice and quickly. Like I say, today I'm using a slightly smaller one because we're only just out of winter. I don't want to put a lot of bait in. So in the summer I'd use this Korum one, but in the winter I've just scaled down a little bit to one of these Preston plug-its. And weight wise, I don't like an over heavy feeder. I use one that's heavy enough to get me where I want, and that's one that's going to maintain my accuracy. Now if it got really windy today and I was struggling with my accuracy and with distance, these are my little get out of jail feeders, and these are the Preston bullet feeders, and as the name suggests, they do go out like an absolute bullet, and it's a mesh feeder, so it's going to get down to the bottom and lose its contents really quickly. So that's my little selection of feeders that I've got for lake fishing, and I'm going to get this little plug-it back on, get it loaded up, see if I can catch a few more bream. had a lovely day on Moat Park today. Not caught any roach, but I've had some fantastic bream. So let's slip these back. I'll see you next time.